tea. My name is Ashleigh Moore. I'm a speech and language pathologist at South Shore Therapies. Today, I am joined by Abby Lynch. She is a speech and language pathologist working in Illinois with 11 years of experience. She's joining us today to talk about stuttering, what it is not, and offer some quick tips for parents to support their kids through moments of disfluency. Abby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Ashleigh. I appreciate it.
Of course. So I first want to start out with the biggest question we get from parents is, where does stuttering come from? Is it common? What's going on?
Sure. Stuttering can be really mystifying for a lot of people. It's one of the less common speech disorders out there. And when it happens, it can be really alarming to parents when they first hear it. And I think a lot of parents sometimes think, does this mean something bigger is going on? Does this mean I did something wrong? And so I think that is a big common question that we hear a lot. So I'll try to demystify that a little bit if I can. So far, what we know about stuttering is that it does come from somewhere, and it's not from parents. It is not the parent's fault that your child is stuttering. We do know that in more cases than not, there is a genetic component, and that people who stutter have more than likely have a family member who also stutters. There have so there actually have been mutations found on 3 genes within chromosome 12, found within people who stutter, but not within control groups. So that's a really interesting new finding that really gives us a lot of evidence that there is a genetic component to stuttering.
Fascinating. I had not heard that about the changes on the genome. That is absolutely fascinating to hear. Well, thank you for sharing that. The next question that we often get is related around what's true about stuttering and what isn't true about stuttering. A lot of people have preconceived notions. So could you run through maybe some facts or some myths there are about stuttering?
Absolutely. There are a lot of misconceptions. So one thing that people might assume about people who stutter is that they're not smart, and that there's absolutely no scientific evidence or link between stuttering and intelligence. In fact, many of our smartest people out there have been people who stutter. So there's zero evidence to that. Another myth out there is that people who stutter are nervous, and that also is very much not true. Nervousness does not cause stuttering, and people who stutter have a full range of feelings and emotions just like everyone else. Another myth out there is that everyone must learn to speak without stuttering, and that's also very much not true. All people experience stuttering moments, even people who do not have a true stuttering diagnosis. The focus really should be on learning ways to successfully manage stuttering instead of on its complete and total elimination. Another myth that I just want to touch on is that people who stutter cannot hold successful jobs, and that is absolutely not true. Case in point, the president of our United States right now is historically somebody who stutters. There are many successful people out there who either have stuttered or do currently stutter, holding a range of jobs. So that is absolutely not true as well.
Yeah. Will you tell everybody a little bit about what we have deemed is a typical disfluency versus an atypical disfluency?
Sure, absolutely. So a typical disfluency would be occasionally repeating a single syllable or a single word once or twice, like this. So if I were to repeat that single word just 1 or 2 times, and if I were to repeat one syllable or one part of a word, just that one time would be considered a typical stutter or a typical disfluency. Hesitancies or use of fillers like are also again considered typical disfluencies. Also phrase repetitions. And I forgot to go to the store. That would be an example of a phrase repetition that is considered typical. These typical disfluencies often occur between the ages of 1.5 and 5 years of age, and they might happen quite frequently, and the frequency with which that they're happening can be alarming when they're first heard. But if you are mostly hearing these typical types of disfluencies, more than likely there's not a huge case for concern. Atypical disfluency would be repeating sounds or parts of a word more than twice, but, something like that. So if you're hearing that repetition of the sound 3+ times, that would be what we would consider more atypical. A prolongation of a sound, well, something like that, where you're stretching out of a sound, but in an uncontrollable way, that would be considered atypical as well. Another atypical disfluency would be a silent block. So that would be something like, I went to the store. So you could see that the individual was trying to say something, but there was no sound coming out. So that also is atypical. Any signs of tension or struggle is also considered atypical. These disfluencies may come and go, but they tend to be more present than they are absent. So if these atypical disfluencies are more what you're seeing, that's the time that it might be worthwhile to reach out to a professional.
Do you have any quick tips? Do you have any do's and don'ts for how to respond to your child?
Absolutely. So I would say the first thing that I would suggest is get down to your child's level and make eye contact and show that you're what you need to finish talking. Don't tell them to slow down. They don't need to slow down. They are taking as much time as they need to talk. So the best thing you can do is really just give them as much time as they need. Try not to fill in their words or their sentences, and really just praise them for talking. Praise them for the content of what they're saying, not how they're saying it. I love recommending to parents to say, wow, I love hearing you talk. You have so much to say. You have wonderful stories, even if that story was chock full of stuttering moments. You don't care about the stuttering moments. What you care about was the content of what they said. Another suggestion is to model wait time in your own talking as the adult. So pay attention to your own patterns of speech and think about, are you someone who maybe is modeling really fast speech and not taking time in your own talking? So some suggestions that I often give are, if your child asks you a question, instead of answering right away, think to yourself, I'm going to count to 3 and then answer, or model some of those typical fillers of and then give your response. So you're modeling some of those positive behaviors that we would want to see in your child to help them create the time that they need to speak more fluently.
Yeah, those are wonderful tips. And I really love that last one in particular, because whether your child stutters or not, that recognition that their thoughts are valuable and that the time that you are taking to listen to their thoughts is something that transcends shaping fluency.
Absolutely.
Well, Abby, it was such a pleasure to speak with you. We've missed you at SST so much.
I miss you guys too. It was great catching up, Ashleigh. Thanks for having me.